Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Where are you located?
I'm in Slovenia.
Slovenia. Oh man. Yeah, I went there a couple times last year.
Yeah.
Ljubljana.
You did the John Zorn thing.
I did that, and I also played a solo guitar concert at Ljubljana Jazz Festival. And then I was supposed to do it this year, but it didn't happen. So we made my band Trickster made like a special video for Ljubljana. They like hired us to do a video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to check it out. I didn't know that. Well,
I think it's online somewhere. Like you look under Ljubljana, like I don't know, archives or something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have a good jazz festival. It's been going on, I think, since 1951 or something.
Yeah, Bogdan. You know Bogdan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He's the jazz guy in Slovenia.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, cool. Hopefully you guys return with Trickster, maybe live. That would be cool to see you guys.
Yeah, we're trying to,
Burning band.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, so I just, I've been listening to you for such a long time, ever since you did, I think it was Mirror, the first one, right? 2006 or...
Yeah, I just re-released that last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since then, so that's a long time now. So that's...
Well, yeah, it's 15 years.
15 years, time goes by fast, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to go through some of the stuff you did and talk about some of the approaches basically you do and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can even play something.
Oh, no, I think better when I have the guitar and.
Oh wow! No, it's beautiful. Yeah. Wow, what is that? Which one?
Oh, this is Charlie Christian Gibson,
1940. Wow. Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's new to me. I just got it actually. I just got it repaired enough to be able to actually have it be working. So now it's in good shape. I'm gonna start using it. So, yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Well, first I want to start. I watched the other day, like you did, like this lockdown kind of changed everything, but on the other hand, it provided some opportunities, I guess, but which I wouldn't see otherwise. And I saw you playing duo with Mary Halvorson for Jazz Fest Sarajevo, and I wanted to, I wanted to ask you, how did you? When did you meet with Mary, and how is it for you, like, to play kind of like this more free context versus to like really more true composed stuff that you usually do?
Okay, so it's two different things.
Yeah.
Well, I met Mary when she first moved to New York, so I forget when that was exactly, but it must have been at least 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we didn't play together. But we were kind of, I guess, I was keeping track of what she was doing, and I guess she was aware of me because she called me to join her group to do the Zorn project, the Zorn Bagatelles project, which is supposedly coming out now. I don't know when it's going to be released, but it should be. We recorded the first volume of that a little while ago. But it was a quartet, and it is a quartet with Mary, who's the leader, and then me on second guitar, and then drums Toma Fujiwara and Drew Gress on bass.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of touring, with that group, with Zorn's insane project, this Bagatelles project, where we would have like 12 different bands all touring together. Which, as you can imagine, is super fun because you get to hang out with all these people that you don't get to hang out with. Like I get to hang out with a lot. For some reason, he likes guitar. He doesn't barely have any horns at all.
Yeah.
But a million guitar players. So, and then not much playing time, like a lot of backstage time because the sets are like 12 minutes long, 15 minutes long. And there's like 12 sets or something, you know. So most of the time is kind of sitting there and kind of listening to the other groups and hanging out, you know. And so I got to pick the brains of a lot of guitarists I like Dave Fugensky and
Oh,
Nels Klein and Julian Lodge and Mark Ribot.
yeah.
You know, these are all guitar players that are like on those tours, you know. So
But
and
you guys
Mary.
actually traveled together.
Oh yeah, big bus, big airplanes. Yeah, I mean
Wow.
big airplanes, just a lot of
Yeah.
seats on the airplane. But
Amazing.
yeah, we did. You know, we get on the bus in Europe. We did. I mean, we did. Considering how crazy
Yeah.
logistically and financially something like that is, it's amazing how many gigs we did. You know, we did quite a few. You know, and
Wow.
hopefully we'll do more. And then we continued doing that group with the Masada Book of Angels, which we
Yeah.
recorded I think the last volume 32 or something. And we did some touring with that, with the same group, but with a different book of music, but also
Yeah.
of Zorn's music. And so, yeah, you know, and Zorn's music is kind of, you know, was new to me. I didn't know his music that well. I mean, of course, I know his records and things,
Yeah.
but I never really played his music. Or it's not so much the material, but sort of the approach, you know, because he has very specific like ways that he wants his music to be performed, you know, and with freedom, you know, for you to do your thing, but it has to really. He doesn't like things to be like wishy washy, you
But
know,
did he
like
tell you, like, when you guys played it, sometimes, like, what
oh
to do?
yeah, no,
Oh,
he
okay.
said,
Yeah.
you know, I need more energy there. Don't let the energy, you know, a lot of it is about energy. Don't let the energy kind
Oh,
of
okay.
fall
Wow.
off, you know, because a lot of times when you, I don't know, let's say you have a tune where it has a specific head, and then there's a section of free improvisation. A lot of times what happens is like people improvise and it kind of fades
Yeah.
out, and then the head comes back in. Like he doesn't like that sound, for example. That's not to him. That's the energy is dying, you know, which
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
kind of agree with. It's nice to be able to keep it going, but it's more difficult because you have to pay attention to what you know everything that's
Yeah.
happening and be synchronized and all that. Um, so so yeah, that's how I met Mary. Got playing with Mary, and then Edin Zubzevic from Sarajevo called me about doing something for the remote Sarajevo Jazz
Yeah.
Festival. So I called Mary and was like, "Hey, you want to play some duets?" So that was cool. And
Oh,
those,
beautiful.
of course, we couldn't rehearse. You know, and she was like, "Well, what do we do? Should we do some material?" I was like, "No, let's just play." You know, because we
Oh,
played
wow.
a lot together, so we kind of can just do that. You know.
Yeah. But
But in response to your question about free playing versus through
yeah.
composed playing, I don't have any different approach. To me
Oh,
it's
okay.
all free and it's all composed, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean some of it is more predetermined maybe, but I want the things that the goal of the improvisation for me is to make it seem like it could have been composed,
Composed. Yeah.
and the goal of the composition is to have it be, you know, free sounding, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously some things are cannot be improvised. If I have a bunch of counterpoint and it's all synchronized and people playing in unison, that type of thing is not,
Yeah.
you can tell that it's not improvised, right? But that's all right, you know. That's just the nature of composition sometimes. But I'm you know, I'm working
No,
on it.
no, I know what you mean. It's about the flow and the energy and yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just keep coming up with ideas. I sometimes, you know, I spoke with Mike Formanek and with Mark Elias and with somehow with so many bass players also and guitar players and you know, like Mike Formanek did like a lot of solo bass performances
Yeah.
and Elias as well and all these guys and Drew Grass, and it's always for me interesting to hear how do you approach a solo gig, let's say, or even an improvised duo gig, you know, how to get an idea how it's that it's not boring and stuff like that. That's
Yeah. Well, in my mind, I have a goal usually, you know, so that it's focused,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So like Mike Formanek, one of the last gigs I did before lockdown in March last year, no, this year, sorry,
yeah,
was at the Stone, and Formanek was I hired Formanek to play,
Oh wow.
and I did kind of do improvised duos with everybody in the group, and with Mike I was like, well, let's play a tune, I mean, but not a tune. So what we'll do is we'll play something that sounds like a standard but actually is not, but it's going
Yeah,
to
how
have
beautiful.
those type of changes and those types of melodies.
Yeah.
And we just made this thing, and it just kept going and going. It was really fun because he's really fast and he has great ears, and I have okay ears and I'm sort of fast, and so we could go like together and just kind of keep building it, but based on the kind of principle of like, of that type of harmony from like a Tin Pan Alley type
Yeah.
of tune, like Cole
Yeah.
Porter or something like that. And so that focuses it in a certain way, and actually it's within those restrictions that you can find the most freedom sometimes, because you're pushing up
Yeah.
against this boundary and you're trying to figure out how much you can do within this thing. So when you start repeating yourself, it becomes very obvious. You
Yeah.
have to come up with something new.
But do you like write down like in your write down in your head like the idea of impros? Sometimes I used to play with many piano players, like free improv, and with Stefano Battaglia, this great Italian pianist, and we sometimes like for impros, like said like, okay, we have 4 sections, like 20-minute improvised set based on rhythm, this one based on intervals, this one based on timbre. You also do that, or?
Could be, yeah. I'm thinking of other things from that same gig, because I had a different group every night, but I didn't have that much material, so it was sort of a lot of sketches,
Yeah.
But I don't like it just to be anything, because then it can be nothing, So I like it to say, well, okay, we're going to work on this scale, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
That's
maybe
cool.
here's a rhythm. We start with this rhythm,
Yeah.
And usually that's enough,
Yeah.
So, you put too much things. I mean, unless you're a group that plays regularly, but and it depends on what type of musician you're dealing with. If I'm playing with Matt Mitchell and I give him a score, he can kind of improvise off the score,
Yeah.
but
That's
but
insane. Yeah.
but that's not. If you give me a score, I'm gonna have to sit down with it for a little while and figure out what's going on, and then figure out the principle behind the thing, and what it's gonna take me a while, because I'm fairly slow with all those things.
Seriously, no, come on. Wow, I wouldn't think that. When I check your, I love that you put the scores on your website and the descriptions. I love that. That's kind of, at least for me, being a listener but also a musician, to
Yeah, a
at
lot of
least.
people like to see scores and read along. All the
Yeah.
scores, though, were written after the records were released.
Ah, okay. Wow.
So I didn't write the scores first. I mean, I had parts, but they weren't organized and looking nice
Yeah.
and everything. And a lot of things changed, of course. So I made the scores afterwards to match the recording, so you could just read along the score with the record,
Yeah.
and it would like go, the right way.
I love that. I get lost all the time, but okay, that's different thing.
Yeah, me too.
Some crazy stuff. But I'll come to your writing a little bit later. But I wanted to ask you, like, going from playing duo, let's say, with Mary, playing solo, and I know you probably answered tons of questions about the Monk project, but I still wanted to ask you about it. I listened to the whole thing like through these weeks now, and
Oh wow, okay.
it's just amazing. First of all, that that you, at least how I hear it, playing solo guitar. For me, I started before like the lockdown, playing some solo gigs, and I was always worried about this filling up the space in a way. You hear Ben Munder, or you hear, I don't know, Ralph Towner or whoever.
Yeah, those aren't good examples.
Yeah, exactly. But
compare yourself to, yeah.
But I was always worried about that, and I wanted to ask you about the Monk thing. You seem to be not worried about, afraid of playing even single lines or playing just the bass notes, or so how did you first come up with the idea of doing this, actually, the Monk project?
Yeah,
solo guitar.
I have talked about this quite a bit, but I'll give you the short version, which is this. It's just something that I wanted to do since I was a teenager,
Wow.
But of course I didn't I didn't really have access to all of the music. Like I didn't know how many tunes there were. For example, I didn't have all the records. Also, I didn't have the technical ability. When I was younger, even through my 20s and 30s, I don't think I really had the technical ability.
Sure.
And then definitely through those periods, I didn't have like the emotional maturity to deal with a lot of the music. In a way that wasn't. That's sort of like what you're talking about, filling up all the space and all that stuff. Filling up all the space is often a function of being nervous.
Afraid or whatever.
This is not in relation to Ralph Towner and Ben Monder. That's just the way that they play, and
Sure.
they're able to do that with certain kinds of techniques and a style. This is a style they have a style that's very voluminous, and I don't play guitar that way. I can't, So I mean, I just have a different way. It's just focused a lot more on rhythm and on actually the balance between what's happening and what's not happening, which is the silence. But there's stuff happening then too. So
exactly.
So yeah, the first tours that I did solo were a little bit nerve-wracking. Like I didn't know how to approach it, because I would play and it'd be like a concert hall and there'd be a bunch of people there, and if you stop playing, it's just quiet. Like that's a very strange thing for me. I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd done it in like restaurants and stuff like that, like playing background music, but that doesn't matter. Nobody's paying attention.
Yeah.
So as far as playing solo and then trying to command and create some kind of energy, it's an interesting thing to see what you can do with dynamics. And I mean, I played some places that were like pretty large places with a lot of people. It's really pretty weird thing. It's very weird because it's like you play and it just all goes out there. It's not bouncing off of another person on stage. I talked with Bill Frisell a little bit about this because I was doing a gig in Australia and he was there and we met up at breakfast.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you've been doing this a long time. Like, how do you do it? He's like, man, it's just, I got to tell you, it's still, it's still scary to me. I was like, oh,
Seriously?
really? But he's a very humble guy, but I was just asking, but I was sort of thinking about him because first of all, he's a great interpreter of Monk, but also he's a great practitioner of dynamics on the guitar and also letting silence happen and letting space happen and recognizing that this is not a piano, this is not it's not a full band, it's not any of those things, it's just a guitar, and there's plenty that can be done with just the one the one thing happening. The ear can't follow a lot of stuff anyway. When I listen to Keith Jarrett, I mean is like I need just, it's like, it can be, if you're really trying to stay engaged, it can be a lot, or Art Tatum or something. I mean, nobody's going to play guitar like Art Tatum, so yeah, what can you do? And then the question is material. Like if you listen to, I mean, the Monk's music, it lends itself to that because the themes are so strong that if I play, I don't need that. I don't need this underneath it. It's there, So I have some models in mind for approaches, Derek Bailey,
oh, really? Wow.
Lenny Bro, great practitioners of guitars that are kind of like do different things with the solo aspect. Joe Pass, and then classical guitarists, like Julian Bream or whoever, just there's I have like a lot of sort of people floating around in my head that I think about when I'm playing, more so than like specific, anything musical, more just like a vibe,
Yeah. No, but how did you you mentioned all these guys now also, and but the repertoire is like 70 tunes, right? I think it's around 70 compositions.
Yeah.
And how did you approach them that they basically it's a unity, but they all sound different in a way, if you know what I mean?
Mm.
Did you like write down a sketch of the whole project, like so that how you approach different tunes, like?
No, I had a list, just a list.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, just a list,
Interesting.
and then I would work on a tune, and then at a certain point, the tune kind of reveals itself
Okay.
somehow.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing I was talking about earlier. Within a certain limitation, you can discover something because of that limitation, right?
Yeah.
So if I sit there and I play a tune for a couple of hours, put it away, come back the next day, play the same tune for a couple more hours, maybe on the third day, I'm getting tired of playing it a certain way, and I start looking for other things to do, and out of that comes the so-called arrangement. Although I never wrote any arrangements down, but I have had a lot of like emails and stuff that's like, hey, where are these arrangements published or whatever, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, there's no arrangement. It's just, I mean, there is an arrangement, but it's just not written down.
Yeah.
But it's whatever arrived after some meditation on that tune, and then you hit record, and then move on down the list.
Yeah.
And that's how it went. For about a year.
Well, did you stick with these arrangements also on live gigs, or did you change them then? Like
no. I mean, roughly. I mean,
okay.
I can't play the same thing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but like the same vibe at least of a tune.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
right.
I don't know what. This is the first tune on the record, and I'm locomotive, and I and the basic feeling is like, yeah. So I'm going to keep that same basic vibe, but it's not. I don't know if you can hear this guitar or not.
Yeah, I hear it's perfect. It's beautiful.
But it's certainly never going to be the same as the
one sure.
Yeah, but the approach is the same. Maybe the same voicings, the same rhythmic sort of triple feel, whatever, same kind of tempo.
Yeah.
That type of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. But was Monk also someone that you listened to already as a teenager, or like when you started with jazz? Like who were
with jazz by listening to Monk? Yeah.
Oh wow.
So when I was about 12, 13, yeah.
What I mean, I think you mentioned it, and I think when I listen to your music, I hear that like that rhythm is like one of the main ingredients of your soup, and I think Monks as well, right? So was this also something that attracted you to Monk as well in the beginning, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I heard.
Yeah.
This type of thing, like, well, that I didn't even know that was possible. Like that having that could be a tune, like those type of rhythms. And of course, I didn't know what it was or how to play it or how to synchronize it. But I was very interested in how do you sort of measure and hit different rhythmic marks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A tune like that was interesting to me. Like, well, how do they play? Like when the drummer's playing, like how do they know what's happening? And I'm talking about it early days when I didn't know any theory, didn't know about forms. I'm just curious about the way things feel, as opposed to like some Bach or something like that, where there's kind of something is happening all the time. Or whatever, some Stevie Wonders, and it's just very clear. Like it's like something. Because I didn't understand that things were being improvised, and some and but it still has order to it. So yeah, I mean that tune, a few others sort of got me into studying jazz and trying to get that feeling,
Yeah, but who were like some other musicians for you as a teenager that kind of like, do you remember some of the first records that blew your mind? That
Yeah, Thelonious Monk at the 5 spot, Mysterioso.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there was one called Thelonious himself, and then Solo Monk, and Monk and Coltrane. I had quite like a pretty good sized Monk collection, like maybe a dozen records, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then Wes Montgomery, incredible jazz guitar, boss guitar. George Benson, the new boss guitar.
Oh yeah.
Charlie
You did all that stuff, yeah.
Charlie Christian, at Minton's and at Monroe's, you know.
Oh, he was a genius, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Dexter Gordon, Our Man in Paris.
Oh yeah.
I like Dexter Gordon a lot. Dexter Gordon Go.
Very different, yeah.
For some reason I was really interested in Dexter Gordon. I think it came from watching that movie Round Midnight, and he was in that, and so So I was really into that. You know, and that branched out into all kinds of things. You know, Miles Davis and
sure.
And I really like Wynton Kelly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And then I was not into very experimental music, and as a teen, I was very conservative. You know, I was like after like 1959 or something. It was like I couldn't take like My Favorite Things or like Coltrane, any kind of 60s Coltrane, any kind of 60s Miles Davis. I wasn't into any of that.
Oh wow, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah. But you were in the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
And
Seattle.
You remember some of the first jazz concerts you saw, the live gigs?
Yeah. Well, I lived in a small town called Port Townsend, and they had a festival there in the summers. So the only music I would really see would be in the summers.
Oh.
And but I would see a bunch there. I had to teach. I would go to this camp, and every year I would study with a different person, whoever the guitar person was that they brought in. This year it's actually going to be me. I'm going to be the guitar person.
That's so cool.
But in those days, they brought it. The biggest one for me was Emily Remler.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah, sure.
So she was really. I was like, when I heard her play, I was like, that's the way I want to play guitar, like just like that. So
wow.
I got all her records and really. So this is a little bit later than what I was talking about before, like getting those sort of basic stuff, like the Dexter Gordons and all that. This is when I'm more like 15 or 16. You know?
Wow, but still quite young, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was really interested in that way of playing, which is really focused on a smooth swinging technique. You know, good time feel, solid time feel. And it's hard to describe Emily Remler's playing. You just have to go listen to it.
But, yeah.
You know,
she was really good.
But her, you know, she sounded kind of like Wes Montgomery with a pick, you know, in a way. So because it had a real it was really relaxed. That's the main thing. Was like I really like the way how relaxed it feels. It doesn't feel like there's any kind of problem.
Yeah.
Whereas they brought in Larry Coryell, which was really interesting to study with him, but that never sounded relaxed to me. Actually, they had a record together, Larry Coryell and Emily Remler.
Really? I have to check it out.
It's called Together.
Oh wow! I don't know.
But on that record, I always liked Emily Remler's playing way more because it always sounded more relaxed to me. Larry Coryell always sounded like he was trying to do something. You know?
It's too hectic in a way, almost. Yeah.
A little bit, and the time feel was a little frantic for me. You know. You know, nothing against Larry Coryell. He's great.
No, sure. Matter of taste, yeah.
But it just wasn't exactly my direction. You know, Larry Coryell, John McLaughlin, certain types of guitar players I wasn't really attracted to. You know, had to do with a lot of stuff coming out of the guitar. I like more sort of like phrasing and stuff like that. So I was interested in Emily Remler and another guitar player they brought in named John Stoll, who was actually I think maybe Maunder might have studied with him.
I think he did. I think he told me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got this very
chordal,
you know? Yeah. He plays the guitar up like this, you know. So
such an underrated
guitar players, you know, I checked out all those people in person, and then some of the concerts were like people, Jeff Hamilton and John Clayton, you know.
Oh wow, yeah.
And George Cables was a big one I saw a few times.
Nice.
In those days, these are people that like came through town, Bud Shank and a lot of West Coast players, you know. But yeah, I didn't go to Seattle really. I didn't. Yeah,
I wanted to ask you that, like, if this Seattle scene kind of influenced you, like with Jim Black and Rosenwinkel and all these guys, or
I couldn't. Was Kurt in Seattle?
No, he wasn't. No, Brad Shepik. Brett Shepik
Yeah,
and all these.
Shepik is in
Shepik.
Seattle. Kirk
Yeah,
is in
exactly.
Philly. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't know those guys, and I didn't go to Seattle because I didn't like have like really access. Like I mean, I could drive a car. I couldn't like stay the night anywhere, so I couldn't like
Yeah.
go out, and I couldn't get into clubs anyway. So it wasn't like
Mm.
I don't know. I met some people through like stuff that they had, like high school big band stuff, like all state band and all those things,
Yeah.
but I didn't really have a crew like that. I had friends in high school that were interested in music, and we hung out together, but I everything I did was kind of like self-taught, and I had a teacher also, but
Yeah.
in terms of my technique and all that, it was pretty self-taught.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I guess, I mean, to me, you have quite a unique approach and sound to guitar playing. Maybe that's where this comes from.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I've
it's-
changed it. I've changed it quite a lot over the years.
Yeah, sure. Like,
Yeah.
it's we all, yeah. But I wanted to ask you then this one change, the move to New York, like it was like late 90s, right?
97.
7. So how was like that? How was it for you, like to come from the West Coast, like from a small village to New York? Yeah.
Village, yeah. Well, actually, I had an interim period, 4 years in Boston. I was undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
so that was really the big change for me, was moving to Cambridge and going to college and all that stuff, and the snow and all. You know, it was just like
Yeah.
everything was. That was really shocking to me, like that city. Even
Yeah.
though Boston is not that big of a city, but to me it was a big city, and and so I had, yeah, there was 4 years in between, and then I came to New York after that, and of course that was also pretty shocking. But I met a good crew of people that I still play with. You know, Dan Weiss and John Flaugher and
Yeah.
Miguel Zenon, and a lot of these people that I've made records with, and my teacher at the time, Rodney Jones,
Yeah.
who I still consult with, you know, and give him
Oh, wow.
calls now and then. Yeah.
You actually, I read that he recommended you to Stanley Turrentine,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and you played with Stanley actually, or?
yeah. I did right before
Oh,
he
wow.
died. Yeah, right before he passed away. I did it. I did one tour and then one run at the Birdland in New York. It was a
Wow.
short period of time. You know, maybe a dozen gigs. So
How was that like for you? I mean, like,
that was great. I mean, you know, George Benson, like like so many guitar players.
yeah, the lineage
like,
is,
like Dave Stryker. You know,
yeah,
so yeah, and then playing those tunes, really just trying to get that phrasing and that swing feel, because a lot of the melodies are like unison or a little bit of
yeah,
harmony with the guitar and the tenor. So that was great. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't long enough to really become like a mentorship or anything like that,
yeah.
but it was, you know, it was Rodney recommended me for a lot of things. So
Oh, wow.
I worked really hard, you know, in order to get it together to sort of make it so that I could be in that position, you know. So,
Yeah,
you know, in
yeah.
terms of learning styles and learning the different ways of that you need, different things you need to do, because his work was a lot of studio work. And so for example, I had to learn how to sight read. You know, I didn't really know how to sight read.
Oh, wow. That's good too. Yeah, that's always a good school to do that. But I mentioned before Mirror and, you know, all these records that you do, and I find it fascinating with you that, you know, at least that's my feeling. When you do a record, it's always like this story. It's almost like a novel for me, because it's like you take time to do a record, if you know what I mean. You it's like all these background behind it. And I wanted to ask you first, like going to short chapters in these novels, like the compositions. How do you approach composition, and how do you start to compose? Actually, do you just come up with a rhythmic pattern, and then, you know, what's your mind when it comes to composition?
Yeah, you'd have to ask me about a specific song, I think,
Yeah.
but I don't really, I still don't really think of myself as a composer, really, like in the sense of like how Stravinsky and Bach and Thelonious Monk are composers. Like I'm more like, you know, I write little things, you know, and they're more like solutions to some sort of
Hmm.
problem. and not even a solution, just a possible way to get through it, you know.
Okay.
So if I want to have a melody that is, it's a canon,
But let's say, okay,
Yeah.
let's say a tune like, okay, Seven Sisters.
yeah, this is a
Which,
tune off of The Sky Below,
yeah,
the
the
last
second,
studio album,
the second Trickster. Yeah. So like,
Seven
how
Sisters.
did you come up with that? Let's say, which is for me, it's mind blowing because
Right.
you have Sean Rickman, of course, on drums, which makes it for me like, okay, I'm lost the
Yeah.
third bar. But how did you approach, let's say that? Okay.
Well, what does this sound like, right?
Yeah.
There's a melody. So this is, it's like a lot of rhythms going on,
Yeah.
kind of, but the basic thing is just, I was just working on a polyrhythm that I was not very good at, you know, which is 7/5.
Yeah. So you basically chose a problem, and the composition kind of like to solve
Well,
it.
this by itself doesn't sound good, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's better if I give it two different sounds.
Okay. Yeah.
But it still doesn't sound like anything.
Yeah.
You know? So I say, well, I could just do it on the guitar. Maybe I'll make the top a fifth, and I'll make the bottom a chord, like a note. So at least it sounds like a G minor, or a G minor with a B flat in the bass.
Yeah.
So right. Okay.
Yeah.
A little better, not much better. So this is sort of how I do it. I was like, well, let me adjust it until it starts to sound like something. Okay.
Okay.
So I say, well, that doesn't sound like anything. So maybe I'm playing 7 in the top and 5 in the bottom.
Yeah.
It's not very easy for me to move the fingers while that's happening. So I want to still make it easy to play, because I don't really like playing stuff that's hard to play, because then in concerts you tend to have less ability to, like, I want to be in the moment, you know. So
Yeah.
so I'll just keep the top the same, but I'll move the bottom note, and I say, okay, well, it's 7/5, so we put 5 in the bottom, like.
Yeah.
You can hear it, right?
Yeah.
You can hear 7 and 5. But then to me, that sounds boring, because it sounds, what I would say is static, meaning like it's repeating every 7 beats.
Yeah.
The exact same thing.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm going to get bored with that pretty quick. It's like a lot of music that you hear that's just looped, you know. Like when I can hear the beginning of the loop, then it becomes predictable, and therefore it's boring. Same thing as conversation with somebody that's always talking about the same thing, whatever, it's boring. So I said, well, let me just make it something different, because the bass has a certain, I like to play with properties of sound, right? So bass notes have a little more gravity to them than the top note. So if I change the bass note, it's going to make it, it's going to pull you a certain way.
Yeah.
You know. So I say, instead of 5 in the bottom, maybe I'll put 4. That way it sounds almost like it's in 4.
Yeah.
And what if I accent it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go to a bridge. I messed that up. Kind of a C section here. Tag 4/6, which is very similar. And then there's a chord.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what you end with. Yeah.
So
Wow.
why 4/6? Because that's what the drums are playing the whole time. They're just playing in triplets. So there's this tension between triplets and between 5/7, which is very close to a triplet, but not quite. And that's always happening. And so that's makes it sound a little mysterious, along with the bass note grouping. So it's like it's hard to grab onto
Yeah,
exactly what's happening, and the melody also is in a different type of phrasing.
yeah, yeah.
The
It's
melodies playing like these dotted quarter note things that are kind of going on and on. So it's almost, the feeling is supposed to be like some different tempos happening.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which to me, I was imagining something like the sound, like like it's kind of an ocean thing, and there's there's the seven sisters are on this island, and they're singing this song, and it's kind of coming over from a distance, and there's this thing happening in the distance, and then there's the current, and then there's a
yeah,
direction you're moving. So there's like a bunch of moving parts, and they're kind of phasing in and out like that with the wind and with the waves
yeah.
and all that type of stuff. So that's all it is. It's really not that deep as a composition. It's just sort of, I just had that initial problem. I just want to work on this rhythm,
Yeah.
and then, but I have to, in order to, I can't sit here and practice rhythms like that. It doesn't work for me. So I have to make it into something that's interesting to me, and then sometimes that becomes a tune. And then 90% of the time it doesn't become a tune. It just gets thrown away.
Like a rehearsal practice thing. Or interesting. But you then basically don't compose initially on guitar, or do you? Like,
not usually, no.
Not usually.
No.
Usually
Usually I'll start with the drums.
So like I saw on Instagram, you like did this kanjira. I think you played kanjira, or like some drum patterns, and that's what would be the basis then, and then you would start from there, for instance, or.
Yeah, like
oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Here. I mean, I like to play on the drum set too, but just as for sketches.
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 sets of headphones on right now. I didn't even realize I had headphones under my headphones. See. Oh, this needs to be tightened up.
Yeah.
That's the rhythm that's happening in this tune.
Yeah.
Underneath what I'm doing, and the beat is here. So there's like this rhythm. That's what I'm playing on guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
Then there's the drums playing something like. They're just playing in 7 and triplets, something like that.
Oh, that's cool.
But a lot of the songs, I'll make a chant on this drum or on some other kind of thing, and that's sort of the basis for it.
But do you ever like tell, let's say for this song or whatever song, like I think I saw Sean and Anthony with Steve Coleman in Italy like years ago, and that just blew my mind. Sean also played with Sean Lane, right? Yeah, I remember him from them already. But like playing with him, since you have these amazing drummers all the time, Dan Weiss and Sean, and how would you explain this to them? Just tell them the concept and then leave it up to them, or?
It's much different. Sean or Dan Weiss, those are the drummers I play with the most.
Yeah.
Sean Rickman, Dan Weiss. Sean is, you could tell him, he just does it basically by ear. I mean, you could write it down and have it all like that, but he's going to come up with better stuff than what you're going to write down. So it's better to give him direction and say, this is the chant. His thing is to work off a chant, which comes from Steve Coleman and all this stuff, which is to say, if a chant is that's a chant to another tune on there. And he says, okay, I got that. He practices it for a little while, and then he does all his variations and stuff on top of that. And he's always able to keep it like underneath. You can always still hear little bits of it inside of all the stuff that he's doing. He's really, really good at that. He just never, he's like, it's just constantly mixing it up.
Constant motion, in a way.
And it's always like in a, really pretty tight groove. That's kind of his thing,
Yeah.
Dan Weiss is a little different, he's like, he can work off of a score, or he could do it by, he's a very versatile type of drummer, but I've been working with him for a long time, since I first came to New York. So we have kind of a particular way of working, which is nowadays is mostly also by ear, but it's a little more technical in terms of like forms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of stuff we play has really long sort of type of forms with these things that turn back. We're getting ready to record a duo album next month. So
But you did that, like Tintal and Joptal, those records, like
yeah.
like how did you approach those records? Because it's like it's based on ragas in a way, right? But it's quite heavy to play that stuff as a duo in a way.
Well, it's not really duo. Those are records of Dan Weiss, early records where he was translating tabla repertoire to the drum set, right?
Yeah.
So
it's basically you're playing background kind of.
I'm accompanying him and doing what's called a lahara, which is just a repeating melody. The challenge, of course, is to keep it steady.
Exactly.
But also, you're not keeping it exactly steady. You're making little adjustments here and there because you have to land it in the right spots. It takes a lot of concentration, and also you need to be able to hear what he's doing. So I had to study those compositions that he was doing. Otherwise, because a lot of them are things like kaidas and these type of compositions where it's like you might play it 3 times in 3 different speeds, or you might play it 3 times and the second time it's off by like a 16th note or something like that. And you have to be able to still, like, if you're hearing it that it starts on the beat, like you won't be able to play the accompaniment. You'll shift over that 16th note and it'll ruin the whole thing, because the whole tension is created by it being off the beat or something like that.
Yeah.
So
incredible stuff.
But that was good training for me to be able to, because you have to listen really closely to the drums, and so I feel like probably more than any other instrument except for the guitar, like I kind of have a feeling for how the drum set works, like how to write for it. And like what kind of physical motions people use. And I mean, I sit there and mess around on the drums a little bit too. So at least I can get a feeling for like what's practical and all that stuff. With Sean, it's a different, Sean is so technical with his feet and with double bass drum and all this stuff. He adds a lot more density to it than I could ever sort of get. So I do a skeleton and he fills it in, whereas with Dan, I might write very, very, very specific parts and he'll just nail that part,
Yeah.
Like
but you do write like you write like in this Ellingtonian fashion for the musicians in the band, or no?
Yeah, of course
you would, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess Ellingtonian, but I mean, I think that's, most people do that. I mean, I think I don't know. I have no idea, but I think if you have a band for a while, you start doing it for those people, But I've always done that because I just to me it gets the best results,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I want just to talk about this. Your approach to composition is also like you mentioned Seven Sisters before, right? There's always a big story behind it in a way, or at least what you do in the liner notes, which I love. I studied literature, American literature, and when I read that stuff and listen to your music.
That was my major too.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. What did you do? Poetry or
undergraduate fiction?
Fiction. Oh, okay. I did poetry. Yeah. But like it kind of makes sense to me when I read all that. Maybe just me, how do you imagine all these processes?
It's just I mean, it just grows right out of something, I mean, if you plant a seed, it grows, as long as you pay attention to it, so
yeah, I love that. Yeah.
But these compositions, each one has a little story, so that's why when you say like, what's your approach to composition, there's no way to really answer that except to say like, we could keep talking about that one tune for a long time. There's a lot of other things as well, because each one is kind of, it's been edited down from many, many different versions. It's not the first draft. I'm not a first draft writer. Some people are like Matt Mitchell or something, like he'll write this stuff out and it's just like, that's what it is. And
so you change it after you give it to the band? You would change it then many times, or?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'll see what works. I see what works and throw the other stuff away.
Yeah.
And when students come to me and ask about composition, and I've been working on this composition for a long time and I'm trying to get it right, and I'll be like, just throw it away. Just start a new one. It doesn't matter. Like if you're really precious about your compositions and you want to hold on to them so much, why are you holding, like, you can make more. Most of what you make is not going to be good, so you may as well just make more,
Yeah, I think one poet, one Slovenian poet said this once to me. He's really, really good. He's like 70, 75 now. He said, like, you basically have 4 good poems in you your entire life. It's kind of,
That's kind of rough. What happens after you write the fourth one? You just quit?
well, when you do it, but basically, it's well, not being too overly critical to what you do, but in a way, it makes sense, like.
Well, who are some of your favorite poets?
Let's see. I did my my BA on Wallace Stevens.
Oh yeah.
And then I did my postgraduate stuff on like Robert Creeley and all these guys, and Frank O'Hara, Gary Snyder.
Wow, so you're into the Americans.
Yeah, I did my PhD in influence of American poetry on Slovenian poetry after 1990. So
yeah, I did a little when I was doing the artwork for one of the themes I was going to bring in was from the 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't end up using that. I used some other stuff, but it was too much. There's a lot of stuff with birds and blackbirds, a lot of different literatures, but I ended up using more mythological stuff.
Yeah, the Trickster kind of goes there also. Yeah. But you mentioned artwork now. You do artwork also on your own, right?
Yeah.
It's how did you come up with that? Because it's quite incredible. You're like, it's everything on your albums. It's you basically,
Yeah. Well, I don't like to have a picture of me. That's the main thing. I don't really want to see a big picture of my face with holding a guitar or something. It just, to me, it looks totally stupid,
The crisscross records idea.
Yeah, what can you say? I mean, yeah, it's just a shot on the street, with guitars. And I mean, whatever.
Anyway,
maybe the music should speak for itself, but I like to have a beautiful object. That's sort of like I like beautiful objects. So I don't think it's just the music. I think it's the whole thing, So, although people don't often even have the object anymore, but I don't care. I'm still the way I want to have some visual thing that is at least a representation of it,
Yeah.
And so, when I was a kid, I would draw a lot. I mean, I'm talking a lot, like thousands and thousands of drawings I have in flat files. I did it on butcher paper, these big rolls of paper, and it just draw like just continuous drawings like through. So I have these things, and so I got pretty good drawing technique actually when I was a kid. I'm not particularly creative, but good at drawing, like looking at something and drafting, getting the perspective right and the proportions and all those things,
Yeah. Oh, beautiful stuff. Yeah.
And so I just do it. Although I haven't done it for the last few records, I did origami instead of drawings. But I might go back to it. We'll see. But I was doing for my first 3 records. It was kind of this trilogy.
Yeah.
The Mirror, Generations, and Figurations.
Figurations.
All the drawings are connected, and they're all thematically connected, and they're all done with a similar technique, which is I wanted to draw them all in reverse, and then have it look like light. So I would draw the shadows. And then scan it and put it into Photoshop and reverse the image, and then color the image, and do it layer by layer. So each layer would have different colors. But I had to figure out, it was kind of like a combination of like imagined like silk screening, and then imagining negatives and drawing the negatives, right? So a lot of times they don't come out right. Like you just mess it up. So then I would maybe do a sketch drawing in pencil or something regular, and then reverse it in Photoshop and print that out, and then copy, sort of like look at that while I'm drawing, so I can get the shadows right. Because it's hard to shadows aren't really what you think they are when you reverse them. They don't look like what you think. So so to get something to really look realistic, I do that and then reverse it and then put layer on a color. And then a lot of times there's like hidden things in there, like little weird like optical illusions and stuff. So, I mean, these drawings, they took longer than making the record. They took like weeks to make these drawings. So I just decided I couldn't do that anymore. So I did the Trickster stuff. I was like, I can't get more complicated. The last one I did, Figurations, it had like 25 layers on it, and they were all individually colored and all reversed and all this crazy stuff. And if you zoom in, there are even like more details and stuff. And it's like, because I would draw them and I would shrink them down and then draw more, and like keep going like that. It was really pretty nuts. So I kind of gave up on that. And it's all done with black pen.
Wow.
like a fine 0.005 millimeter black pen,
Yeah.
you know.
Incredible.
So it's like a lot of, it's too much time to spend on artwork.
Yeah, no, amazing.
Most people just see it like this tiny thing. So then, for the Trickster ones and stuff, I wanted to get a very clean image that can read. It reads well when it's still small. You know, like a thumbnail on Apple Music or whatever. Like you could still see that it still looks like something, even if it's just a little icon or something like that. That's where that bird came from. It's just an icon.
Beautiful, man. I love that. Can I just ask you one question about the Trickster's Dream, the last album you guys did? It's again a live one. Kind of, does this end another trilogy, I guess, or not even like, but how did you guys do that one actually? Because it was recorded during the pandemic, right? The lockdown.
Yeah, recorded in March. So that's connected to you because it was for Slovenia originally. So for Ljubljana, I mean.
Yeah.
So Ljubljana Jazz Festival contacted me to do a concert, like a virtual concert, you know. I was like, well, I had kind of been wanting to make a record anyway, so I got permission from them to like do a concert, but then I could turn that into a record.
Oh, okay.
So but I was like, well, but I did actually 2 different versions. So the one that for the festival is not the same as Trickster's Dream. Trickster's Dream is like this draft 2.0 or whatever, but the concept is the same, which is like everybody records at home and then it's a record. But the question is, this is a problem everybody's dealing with. How do you, if you don't want to just be kind of like ambiguous, improvised kind of stuff, how do you synchronize it?
Yeah, that's the main.
How do you synchronize it without using a click track? I don't want to use a click track. I don't like it.
You didn't use a click track for that one?
No.
Wow. Jesus.
No,
okay.
No, didn't use a click track, but the music is highly synchronized. So it's like really, really detailed synchronized stuff. So I was like, well, I don't want to use a click track, but I need it to be synchronized. But I can't sit here and play a scratch track for the whole thing because I don't play all the time. So and I can't have Sean do it. Usually you put the drums first, but I can't have him just do it because he doesn't know what I want. So I just sang a concert, like I sang a scratch track.
Wow.
Bass, piano, and so I do like that, and I sing the cues, and of course I'm kind of messing up a lot. Like my time is kind of going up and down the same way I would in a normal
that's natural
concert. So it had those things, and it drove Sean totally, because I sent that track to Sean. I was like, okay, play the drums, and he took like a week. Like he was there, he was like, what the hell is this that you sent me? Like, couldn't you just send me a click? And I'm like, no, I don't like the click. He's like, yeah, but I was like, I can't be natural with the click. He's like, yeah, but I can, so you should have just done it that way. I was like, well, it's too late, so he did it. He was like, man, don't ever do that to me again. I was like, okay. But I like the result he got because it's all crazy. It's really crazy. So then then we just layered it up from there, bass, and then I did guitar, scratch track, another scratch track. Like every level I put another scratch track on, and then send it back. And then because I wanted, like, I got more ideas as it was coming, so then I say, like, oh, I want to put the solo here, the solo ends here, and so Matt puts his thing on, and then I put my guitar on at the end.
Crazy. Wow.
It was kind of a lot of work, but actually the most work for that again was the visual part, because I made a video to go along with it.
I saw it. So
everybody recorded the videos at home. I put backgrounds, I did like animations, and
so you did that as well, or
oh, wow. I had to learn the software, which was Adobe Premiere, and I learned that program. I learned it well enough to understand like keyframes and stuff like that, and how to get things to move around and stuff, because I can't just the Hollywood Squares thing with the boxes is just static is, I can't look at that for an hour. Like it's terrible, So.
Wow, man, that's incredible job. The Miles, not to take too much of your time, just one question I'd like to ask you, which is about your sideman work, and just like Anthony and Sean are still are part of Steve Coleman a lot, and
Mhm.
like when did you hook up with Steve?
It
And
was around 2007, 2008. I started writing him some emails and things like that, and be like, "Can we get together?" And he's
oh
like,
really?
"Who are you?
Oh
You know, who are you? Why are you bothering me?" Type of stuff, you know. But I bothered him long enough uh, that he, I went out to his place and spent some days out there and worked on music. And he was like,
oh
"Well, I
wow.
guess this guy's actually pretty serious, you know." So, we spent a long time before I was playing in his group. We spent a long time just talking about music and music theory and studying, because that's really what he's like, a student, really.
Yeah.
He has this library, insane library, and he knows an incredible amount of stuff. So I just, wanted to, well, you don't, if you find people that are interested in a similar area than you but are much farther along,
Mhm.
you may as well seek those people out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of reinventing the wheel, and then you're 60 years old and you're like, okay, I finally got to where this person was at 60, but I could have done it a lot faster, and then I'd be able to actually contribute something,
yeah,
because you can kind of, put
yeah.
some extra layers on or whatever, so yeah, I was with that group until 2016, late 2016, I guess, when I started trying to work more on this Trickster stuff, and on the monk thing
Yeah.
I did that year as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But how was it for you, like working with Steve? Like, does he give like a lot of instructions in a sense of as a side collaborator or whatever, how you want to call it? But like, how is it for you? Like him being a composer approaching to you as a member of his group, or?
Yeah, well, that's quite a big question. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah.
Basically, his stuff is done by ear, mostly. I mean, there are some things we did that were sort of like very long, involved compositions with long, complicated melodies.
Yeah.
So that were like what he was getting into later on, which was like improvising and then transcribing those improvisations, and that's the tune. And those,
Wow.
of course, would be like a whole solo. Like it'd be like 100 bars of stuff, or sometimes shorter. When you listen, we did a record live at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah, yeah, I love that one. Yeah,
a couple of those type of tunes. But his earlier, the main body of compositions, all these things like, whether it's, Change the Guard or 9 to 5 or
yeah,
Fidget Time, or all these kind of, with this Doug Hammond tune that he would play a lot, or they're kind of like, I don't know, he has like a repertoire, and it's really, really big,
yeah.
So it'd be like a lot of memorizing and a lot of ear training, and then a lot of just being open to whatever happens, because he would never repeat. He might play a tune one way, but then the next day it may be that tune, but it may be with a harmony of this tune might go to the rhythm of that tune,
Oh, wow.
or something like that. So that whole approach to leading a group was very influential to me. Because it's not a lot of instructions or cues like, hey, we're going out, like it's sort of just listening to what's happening, maybe with a little something like that, is about
Yeah.
as much as you might get. But usually a musical cue, something inside of the music, which is, I like that
Yeah,
thing where the things are not like planned out, but there are elements to the music that then tell you what's happening. This cue means we're going there. This cue means we're going to a different place. This represents the end of the set. He has certain things that are like end of a tune, and it's like the end. That's the end of the tune. Where it could be in the middle of something, and if he plays that, then the band stops. And if you're still playing, that means you weren't paying attention, right? So, it's a lot of paying attention, which is kind of the essence of improvisation. In the moment, you're paying attention to what's happening. You're not thinking about what you're going to do when you get your chance to do something or whatever.
Yeah.
So I naturally gravitate towards playing that way anyway. So it makes sense, I mean, in terms of just trying to react, and not trying to plan too much,
Yeah, definitely.
Dr. Jazz.